What is up, wrestling world? Welcome back once again to Dissecting Dynamite. As always, I am Andy Perez with 411mania.com. And before we get started, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment in the chat what you thought about this week's episode of Dynamite. And also, go ahead and drop in the chat, what are your predictions for AEW Revolution coming up this Sunday night? That's right, Sunday, not Saturday, because as you surely know, if you're watching this, tonight was Crossroads and also the go-home show for Revolution. So we have a whole lot to cover tonight. Joining us in just a bit when he finishes the written Dynamite live coverage over at 411 Mania, we're going to have the great Tony Acero coming up. But until then, let's go ahead and take a look at the craziness that was packed into tonight's Dynamite. If you look over to the left of your screen, you have the rundown of the card. But in case you're hard of sight, let's go ahead and give you another visual element to play along with. We have 10 versus Max Caster to see who's going to end up in that ladder match, the TNT title, face of TNT ladder match. Of course, we have the Matt Hardy and Mark Quinn in the main event this week going up against Hangman Page and Johnny Hungy, John Silver. We have FTR along with Tully Blanchard facing off against Jurassic Express. We have Nyla versus Rio, and not the Rio that we were predicting going into the finals of this tournament, but nonetheless a wonderful match that we will be covering in just a bit. Tony Acero and myself. And then we of course have Chris Jericho and MJF giving their press conference, giving their thoughts to Revolution heading into their big tag match with the Young Bucks. And then we have, of course, Paul Wight joining AEW, giving his thoughts for the very, very first time on AEW television. Didn't want to miss that. And then, of course, what everybody's talking about, the cross-body heard round the world. I hear the echoes of cracking wrestling tables still now, even almost 2 hours after what went down, and that is, of course, Cody and Red Velvet taking on Shaq and Jade Cargill in what was a train wreck, but a very entertaining one nonetheless. Before we get into the whole rundown of what was going on with AEW tonight, we of course have to run down what is going on at Revolution this Sunday. It's shaping up to be quite a card, and we're going to have Tony on in just a moment talking about who he thinks is going to come out on top. Of course, we have the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. We saw the pandemonium as we went off the air tonight. So there's a lot up in the air looking at the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal situation. Of course, we have Miro and Kip Sabian facing off against Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor, and quite a controversial story. People still not sure about Miro in this position, but of course, it never hurts to have Orange Cassidy on your card. And then the face of the Revolution match, we have Cody Rhodes facing off against Scorpio Sky, facing off against Penta, facing off against Lance Archer, facing off against, I don't want to spoil who won between 10 and Max Caster, but we may hear a rap in the entrance to the face of the Revolution ladder match. And then we have an empty spot, an empty slot. And there's a lot of intrigue going into this show because, as we'll talk about in just a bit with Paul Wight's first statement in AEW, we're looking at the potential of a major debut for AEW this Sunday. I'm pretty sure the words that Big Show, or the words that, I'm sorry, I don't want to get a copyright strike by Connecticut, by New York, but there were very specific words that Paul Wight used when he was describing the debut that we're going to be seeing on Sunday. He said, I believe, Hall of Fame worthy is what we're looking at. And as Tony and I were watching the show, Tony, I believe, was going on Twitter reading off some of the predictions that people were throwing out there. People were saying CM Punk. People were saying Brock Lesnar. I'm pretty sure I saw someone say Triple H. But yeah, there's a lot going on. What do I have here? Tony, are you ready over there? Alrighty. Okay. Once again, you know him, you love him. Coming on to tell us his thoughts on AEW Dynamite tonight and also share some insight into his mind leading into Revolution this Sunday. We have the one, the only 411 Mania's own, Mr. Tony Acero. Now, Tony.
I'm the guy that signed with AEW. I'm the Hall of Famer.
So it looks like we stole...
Paul Wight will be announcing.
It looks like we stole Paul Wight's scoop here. You heard it here first, everyone. It actually is Tony Acero is going to be the extra man in that Face of the Revolution ladder match. But before we get into the details there, Cody and Red Velvet versus Shaq and Jade Cargill. I know this is a match that you've been eagerly anticipating your entire lifetime. I'm not even going to say just a few months. This is something that you've been anticipating since you knew who Jade Cargill was. Did it reach your standards? Did it live up to the hype? What did you think about seeing the 9-foot, 800-pound behemoth Shaq in the wrestling ring tonight?
Yeah, I wanted to see this before Jade even existed. I that's how much foresight that I have. Being the soothsayer that I am, I predicted this coming roughly 20 years ago. No, I had zero interest in this match, not even a little bit. I think we spoke about it a few weeks ago. This seems to be on the build for quite a while. From the Britt Baker segment to Jade cutting probably the worst promo ever. Back with Brandy Rhodes going full urban. The whole setup was just something that I was not interested at all.
I think you're missing. I think you're missing a couple points. You can't forget Shaq had water thrown in his face. Huge turning point. You can't forget Shaq making a free throw, which was monumental in terms of AEW television, and of course. He coined the nickname Cupcake Cody, which is something that we will be using for the rest of eternity. So don't discredit the entire feud, please, Tony.
These are big moments. You're right. You know what? I feel like I'm minimizing the impact that this thing will have for future generations of wrestlers. I mean, just Shaq hitting a body slam and a power bomb is super important to the world. No, I because the bar was so low, I was thoroughly impressed tonight with a couple of things. One, that they allowed Shaq to hit some moves that were obviously taught to him and kept it relatively safe, and Cody trusted him. Two, that Jade did not really, she wasn't clunky in the ring. There were a few mistakes from my point of view. I don't think that she sold a single move, but one could say she's a powerhouse. She's a big muscular woman who doesn't have to sell, and that could be part of the gimmick. But I just didn't. It looked like she forgot. It looked like it was not a character choice, but a training choice. It's a shame there wasn't a free throw competition in the middle of the match because she probably would have demolished everyone. The table spot was incredibly telegraphed with Shaq getting into the spot super early and the ref having to tell him to move back to the corner. But all of that was minor compared to how bad I thought it was going to go. So I was actually cool with it. It was an opening match. It was not all that bad. It was a cross promotional thing that's it's fine. I mean, it's not Steve-O getting his ass beat by Umaga and then no selling it for no reason. So yeah, it was fine for what it was. It was somewhat inoffensive. I don't know how a big dude like that disappears from an ambulance, but apparently neither do they.
Yeah, I'd say comparing it to Steve-O's no sell, it's not doing Shaq any favors because I'd say he did the ultimate sell. Not only was he flat out knocked out from the table spot, but he completely disappeared from existence after the table spot. So he must have been hit pretty hard. But yeah, it looked like the story of this match, past the Shaq ordeal, past the huge table spot that is plastered all over Twitter now. I think the big story is that this is the first that we've seen of Jade and seen her pick up that win so decisively. I mean, AEW obviously has a very considerable stock in her, considering that she's been the push that she's gotten and her involvement in this major storyline. So, what are your thoughts on her moving forward? Obviously, she picks up this win with that massive Glamazon slam. But yeah, it looks like they have big plans for Jade Cargill moving forward, and this obviously isn't the last that we're seeing of Shaq as well, or who knows, maybe it is. But the amount of intrigue leaving this storyline with Shaq, poof, disappearing from the ambulance and having Tony Schiavone stand there in disbelief was a very odd choice. What did you think of that bit of storytelling?
Well, I kind of wished it would have been over tonight. So that would have been a nice closure and like let's move on. But I don't know. Cody's one of those interesting characters where, when he was gunning for the TNT title, we kind of felt like it was a bit much. He was putting on matches with, an open challenge that didn't really put on anything or put anybody up to any level. It was one-off, it was kind of a one-off thing where like, where's Sunny Kiss right now? Like we didn't, get a push out of that. Not that I was asking for it, but simply that, those were more to say they did it. I feel like, it was more to say I did that, than actually push anybody to any type of level. So it's kind of good in keeping him away from other wrestlers, but also it's Shaq. And as good as a knee lift as he gave and a power bomb, you can mess up a power bomb, but it's unlikely that you'll mess up a power bomb. So I can't applaud him for doing that. That's mostly the person helping him out and bumping. Yeah, I wish it would have ended. So I'm not interested in where Shaq disappeared to. For all we know, he's hiding behind a tree. Jade, I don't know. I don't know if we firmly established her in the women's division. She looks completely different than everybody else. So either and AEW is not big on squashes, so it's not like we're going to get that Ryback push, or at least I hope we don't. But if she doesn't have the skills, then what do you do with her? Because she can't cut a promo every week because she's not good at it. If you put her in a match with somebody, she has to win. So there's gonna need to be some sort of storyline, and maybe this is leading to that. I just don't know what, and I'm not really all that interested either.
I can properly say that I'm as much on board with you as I possibly can be. So as you're mentioning, AEW not really feeling great about squash situations, not usually going that direction. Next up, we have about as close to an AEW squash match as we ever get, and that is Rey Fenix and Pac versus I believe their names were John Skyler and D3, and our poor jobbers here might as well have been pieces of that table that Shaq went through because they were obliterated in this match. You get in there with Rey Fenix and Pac, and you better be praying to whoever your god is if you have one, because these two guys are balls to the wall destruction, and they have every bit of dexterity to match the aggression and pain that they're putting out there as well.
Oh, these guys are. Ray is probably my MVP for at least since I started doing the report. Every match he's in is just like everything's astounding. It's just he's leaps and bounds beyond anybody. And then you team him with Pac, who is also in the same ilk. Like you're just like waiting for a 5-star classic. It's like starts at 5 and then minimize. And you know how stringent my star ratings are. They're like okay. No, so this it's so hard to just let AEW do something like this because I'm so critical of WWE, and one would think that there's a direct comparison, but I can't see it. Now, if they just started doing this every single week and there were jobbers that were just getting their asses kicked, Ray walked across the ropes and kicked somebody in the face. Like, how could you not cheer that? How could you not be excited about that? That was amazing. Also, I think it was just getting these guys on the show. They need to keep it sparing. They need to do this sparingly. If they do it too often, it's going to become, a thing, and we don't want it to. And I think they're aware of that. I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I believe so as well. And a lot of people look at Pac as a main event player, and he's shown himself to be as well with his matchups against Hangman Page in the past, against Kenny Omega, that amazing Iron Man match that he had on Dynamite, and even his interactions with like Orange Cassidy and maybe a more comedy sphere. He even elevates those scenarios. So I don't know how long he's going to be paired up with the Lucha Brothers here as the Death Triangle. Obviously, the Lucha Brothers have an incredible amount that they can contribute as well, both as single performers and as tag team performers. But when are we actually going to get Pac in the gear that we know he can go? And that's a question that a lot of people are asking about a lot of members of the AEW roster. I've heard people ask that about Miro. I've heard people ask that even about maybe somebody greener like the Wardlows of the world or something of that nature. How long can you keep Pac in this position while making sure that he stays relevant and that he can stay within that mix?
Well, I first want to say that I'm really glad that Orange Cassidy put Pac over, because before that he was nobody.
Right.
But no, I think that if you have a good creative side, if you're a writer, if you're a wrestler, then the length of time in which you have to wait for someone to be to the top could be immeasurable. Not everybody needs to be at the top all the time. Not everybody needs to be at the top, period. If the story's great, then you're intrigued as an audience, you're engaged, and you're not necessarily clamoring for him to be the ultimate person. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't be or that he's never going to be. But, I mean, when you look at AEW, they're babies. You know, They are less than 5 years old. They are not in a rush. And, I mean, it's so different. On Raw, you had two champions. You had a title change, and then before that, there was another one. Now, yes, of course, there's a Money in the Bank briefcase involved. There's a story involved, and one could like or dislike. But the title gets shot around a little bit more frequently, and it does inevitably diminish the story. Maybe not the title. To some people, it does diminish the title, but to some people, the story isn't as engaging. AEW tends to spend some time with the story elements that allow you as an audience member to be intrigued enough to not necessarily worry whether or not this person is the biggest champion in the company. Right now, you just want to see him murder people.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you'll get to that point. And I think that's when you gauge the audience. It's hard because they don't have an audience, but that's when you kind of gauge where do they want us to go? You know, who's getting the most cheers, who's selling the most shirts, and how could we use that? Let's make him chase the title and see where that goes, or let's make him the champion and see where that goes. But right now, I think they're doing good. I'm not really big on the records thing, but at least it's a gimmick that some people can enjoy.
Right. It's at least something that people can latch onto, like a reflection of what's been going on for week to week. It's not necessarily the thing that you can look back on and say, oh man, I missed this episode of Dynamite. Oh, at least I can look at the rankings and see what happened. That's not really the flow that they got going on. But nonetheless, once again, if you're watching at home, make sure you let us know in the chat what your Revolution predictions are after we break down the show. Tony and I, rather than giving the usual superlatives here on Dissecting Dynamite, we're going to go through the Revolution card and break down who we think is coming out on top. And if you're watching Revolution this upcoming Sunday, make sure you're reading along at 411mania.com as well, because Mr. Tony Acero is going to be the one with the live coverage. Is that correct, Tony?
Yes, it is. People could see us, huh? Glad I'm wearing the shirt to prove I went to college. Hi, everyone. I'm kidding. I'm fully aware. Yeah, I will be doing the pay-per-view this weekend. Looking forward to it. Covering a pay-per-view is just a whole nother beat. There are no bathroom breaks, man. There's you could try to take a piss when Jericho goes out there because you basically know what he's going to say. But other than that, you're glued to the seat. So I'm excited.
And thanks for giving me the Jericho transition there, because coming up next we had MJF and Jericho with their press conference, basically showing the world exactly why they are the prime grade A dicks that they have have proven themselves to be over the past handful of months. The inner circle looking a little thin this week as they're walking out. Of course, Sammy is long gone. Jake Hager apparently out this week. And we had quite a little segment here. We had multiple reporters from Barstool Sports in the house. We had we had Conrad Thompson on. We had Eric B back on the show. We had some insults flung around. We had insults to people's fathers going out there. Just a whole slew of entertainment madness going on here. What did you think of this MJF and Jericho press conference, and how do you think it built the story leading into Revolution?
I tried to get a press pass to the interview. Apparently, they don't recognize 411 as an actual entity, so that sucks.
What can you do?
One day. No, but did you know, slight aside, the only press pass I ever got using the 411 Mania name was years ago at an adult expo. They don't know that. Sorry, Larry. So
I mean, he knows now, so.
Man, I miss you, Larry. Okay, so MJF and Jericho, they are smarmy, they are great, they attack the Bucks' dad, and they made it personal. You know, they made it a little bit more intense than it should have been. So one would assume that the Bucks would come out and, you know, be very, very upset about their father, which they were for about 30 seconds. And then they decided, let's just insult Jericho by saying he's going to curtain jerk the Performance Center. Like, I know that, you know, there's like not really a battle going on. I know that. But the Bucks they got to get over themselves. If there were no Bucks, there'd be no AEW. Like, are you faces or heels? I'm not sure. Nobody's sure. They don't even know. You know, it just kind of comes off a little bit like MJF and Jericho were the dicks here. They beat up their dad, and I don't want to write the Bucks. That's not my job. But I don't feel that they care. You know, he built a ring in my backyard for, you know, with his bare hands. Yes, you know, I read the book, but also like that should have been the focus. It should have been a little bit shorter, a little bit sweeter, a little bit more like, now you've made it personal, and now I'm gonna kick you in the throat. But they had to get their jabs in. They had to, you know, like, you know, it comes off as a little lengthier than it should have been. And this could just be me critiquing the Bucks because I haven't liked them for a while, but I'm trying to give some clout to what I'm saying. And I think a part of that is just like, I don't know.
See,
someone bashed my dad's head into a truck, I might be a little upset.
Right, that's the thing. I am a fan of the Bucks, and I'm still connecting with what you're saying. Yeah, if somebody bloodied my father the previous week, I'm not coming out the next week with a microphone. I'm coming out with a tire iron. I'm here to get some blood. And that's just not the situation we saw. What we saw was an appropriate response to the jokes that Chris Jericho and MJF were throwing out. So if that were the severity of the situation, if that was the stakes that we were working with, then maybe that would have been an appropriate response. But it seemed like Young Bucks were reacting more to MJF calling Conrad turkey tits than they were to their dad getting obliterated the previous week. So yeah, there's definitely some stakes going into this match. Of course, you have the tag team titles on the line. That's a built-in story. You have the whole situation with MJF and Jericho, and the strength of the inner circle arguably on the line as we're going into there. And then on top of that, we have you made this personal now. You beat up my dad. So we have a lot of different stories we get to play with moving into Revolution, which has me excited because as we know, MJF is a wonderful storyteller at the young age that he is. Jericho is a wonderful in-ring storyteller. And then we've seen what the Yucks, maybe that's what you can call them now, the Yucks.
Good name.
Maybe that's what the Young Bucks, we know what the Young Bucks have done against the likes of Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, and against the likes of FTR and AEW pay-per-views in the past. So there's still a good amount of steam going into the show, but definitely wasn't even close to one of my favorite segments that I've seen from either of these pairs. But yeah, from there we had a little bit of history behind the exploding barbed wire death match. We're going to talk about that a bit more in depth when we go into our predictions in just a little bit, so make sure you stay watching for that. Make sure you leave a comment in the chat. Let us know what your predictions are as well. But then we also have Tully and FTR versus Jurassic Express coming up next. We have JJ Dillon out there behind FTR. We have Tully out there in his Elvis cosplay jumpsuit. And we have a whole lot going on here. What we initially thought would maybe be a somewhat of a placeholder feud maybe for FTR has grown into almost like a primary television feud, and it's really built up Jungle Boy in specific, especially with his big win just a few weeks back. What are your thoughts on the storyline that we've been seeing build between these teams, and where do you think we might be heading? Because it seems like they keep on milking this situation here, and you think it would be over with Jungle Boy submitting Dax, but it just keeps on chugging along. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a part of me that feels like I should be upset that Tully got a pinfall win over Jurassic Express, but I don't know. I can't figure out why right now I'm not. Maybe it's nostalgia, and maybe it's because they haven't beaten it quite yet into the ground.
Right.
I enjoyed the moments. Throwing up the 4, Arn coming out, JJ Dillon even being there, the shoe, like all those things were just like so old school that I was like, I can't hate this. This is cool. I'm not 100%, it's still fresh, so I'm not 100% sold on the win, but it does mean that something more is coming. Let's hope that we can move forward towards the actual wrestlers of the show. Spears coming back. I mean, he left because he was upset and there was no significant change, and all that we saw was he dyed his hair. So let's hope that there's something significant in that return, because otherwise there was no reason for him to leave. So the story needs to be there, a little bit stronger on the AEW side and on the Spear side. What does he gain from this? Is this foreshadowing for a new 4 Horsemen like we've heard rumors of off and on? And if it is, who's the other guy? Because we got 3. It's not Tully, so yeah. And then you also just have to admit, like, when you get, because of the fact that there has always been like 2 brands of wrestling that have been at the top, when you get something and there's a piece missing, it almost always feels just a little cheaper. Mm-hmm. So you don't got your 4th there. It just kind of comes off like, well, you tried, like good for you, but, FTR is great. Jungle Boy is great. Lucha can only get better. I still have some reservations about his skill set. And Stein looks great being thrown around. But so I enjoyed the match for what it was. Totally had some spot. I love that fake out. Go for it. I really did. I'm like, they're not going to let him dive. And then he runs and I'm like, oh shit, they're going to let him dive. And then he struts like a jerk. It was great. That was great. So yeah, I'm going to hold my reservations just for about a week to see if I fully am okay with this or not. But I do agree it has been dragged on for a long time. I also think that we've been conditioned to, well, maybe not you. I know that I have been to have stories be told in such a truncated version with only the highlights, with so much crap that you're just like, can this end already? But I mean, when you look at weekly episodic television, there are some stories that you want to take time, and they can forever as long as you do it right. And I think for the most part, AEW does it right.
Yeah, I can't argue much with that. It was a bit confusing for me at the end with the 4 Horsemen situation, just the logistics of that. In addition to the obvious missing horse member, but in addition to that,
I was waiting for Arn to do this. It just like
right. Right, but the thing is, on top of that, within AEW, Arn is in a completely different faction than Tully, and when it comes to Spears returning, the most I can say in terms of like storytelling, what it does for him, it brings together the 2 sides of Tully that we've seen in AEW, which are very, very similar sides nonetheless. But moving forward, We had a little bit of awkwardness as Tony was standing on the stage as our newly formed Four Horsemen are exiting, and we have JJ Dillon trying to get a bit of screen time. But he didn't cut much into Paul Wight's screen time here. We had a fun little interview between the soon to be announced team over at AEW Elevation on Monday nights. I believe they're going up now. But the big story here is that Paul Wight has a huge scoop, and that scoop is that at Revolution, AEW has a Hall of Fame worthy debut coming up. If you're in the chat, leave a comment. Tell us who you want to see pop up at Revolution. Tony, I was listing off some names that you had read off Twitter earlier in the night. Where is your mind going into Revolution? A whole bunch of anticipation now. I'm sure on 411 Mania we're going to see at least 3 articles of speculation before Sunday's show. But what are you thinking?
You know, this is one of those things where I'm not going to put a lot of energy into it. I like being surprised, and so far AEW has not gone the TNA route of just surprising for the sake of surprising. The Big Show signing is weird to me, but it's not like a shock. I think Show still thinks he's got something left to give. Mm-hmm. And the WWE was just like, no, you don't. You're going to lose to Drew, and that probably bugged him. But, I mean, we got some big dudes in AEW that could probably use a little bit of, fine grooming and, like, anything that Show has to give, he's willing to give. It seems like a place where he could give back to the younger generation of wrestlers. As far as this new person coming in, yeah, I really haven't racked my brain too much about it. I just hope it's not a swerve. This is the Big Show. I think I mentioned to you off air that someone said it's the Big Show's just going to announce that he's signed, like he's the Hall of Famer that signed. So I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, that's a big swerve. Not only is he on the announced team, but he is a full-time performer now too, and he is entering himself in the Face of the Revolution ladder match.
Yeah, and that just stinks of WWE.
What can you do? It's not going to happen, so I'm going to go ahead and wipe that from my mind. I'm trying to be less cynical. It's a new year. It's a new me, Tony. Come on. But nonetheless, coming up next, we had Nyla Rose versus Ryo Mizunami. And in quite a match here, a competition that has been very well received in terms of in-ring competition, injecting a bit of much-needed intrigue into AEW's women division, but not without controversy, of course. Some people upset over its presentation, some people upset over the winners that we've seen progress throughout the tournament. What have been your thoughts of the Eliminator tournament so far, and what are your thoughts on Nyla and Ryo ending up in the finals here for us on tonight's episode of Dynamite?
So the women's division in AEW is kind of hard to sink your teeth into because there's not a lot of meat. But they have tried to repair that over the... Well, I wouldn't even say they. I would say the women have tried to repair that over the last... Nyla kind of disappeared a little bit, and I didn't miss her. But the last 2 matches that I saw, I was like, oh, shit. She knows what she came back with a vengeance. It's almost like she left to get some, get some training or to realign her focus or whatever the case may be, because she came back, and last week was a really good match, and this week was a really good match, which leads me to believe, even if she didn't win, even though she's not moving forward in this tournament, she showed, hey, I deserve to be here. I hope that they use that. I hope that they kind of springboard off of that. With regards to who won and the story that they have, I'm hoping that they educate the viewer. You and I kind of talked about it, like what exactly is going on between these two. Oh, that's what's going on. And then that little exchange at the end where they're just basically toughing it out is kind of I think a nice little foreshadowing of like, this is going to be an ass kicking contest. Like they're going to hurt each other bad. That's the hope, at least.
Most definitely. I like what you said about Nyla Rose, the improvement that you've seen with her. She is so vastly improved over the past year or so. It's pretty incredible. I know that there have been comparisons between her and Nia Jax, and we were even speaking about it a bit during the show. But Nyla has improved more in this year than I think Nia has throughout her whole career. But yeah, she seems just so much more comfortable in the ring and in front of a television audience, and and that's really improved the Haas energy that she brings. And as anybody that's seen any episode of this show, they know that I love Haas fights. I usually say that I love big meaty men slapping meat as a tribute to our boy Big E, but but tonight I loved some big meaty women slapping meat, and Rio's energy and goofiness just adds to the overall spectacle of it. Wannabe Trout Fishers in the chat again this week. Glad to see you saying best match of the night. Surprised of the outcome. I think a lot of people were. A lot of people were surprised over. I mean, like these certainly weren't the finals that many people predicted, but it's the finals that we got, and we had a handful of really solid matches throughout this eliminator tournament, and this one to end it as we head to Shida versus Rio and in this upcoming pay-per-view. And I really feel like it put this women's division in more solid standing. It gave it some heftier legs to stand on, and hopefully we continue seeing that built as we move forward. And as we move forward here, of course, we have to build the big street fight that we're going to see on Sunday. We have Sting teaming up with the TNT champion Darby Allin to face off against Team Taz, to face off against Team FTW. That's Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. And Sting's charisma during this promo that he cut, you could just feel the energy through the screen. At least I could. Whenever he speaks, I mean, it's obvious why he became a star, why he became so beloved. Just the energy that it brings to anything that he's doing. But we have Ricky Starks getting the interruption, and Ricky Starks, I mean, put him in any position to shine, and he's going to look like a star because that's exactly what he is. But tonight he shined even brighter with that slap against Sting, and that led to a big old beatdown. What are your expectations moving into this street fight? I feel like people's expectations have been flipped in recent weeks. Sting actually getting physically involved, taking a big power bomb, putting to rest what many people were saying about Sting not bumping in the company, things of that nature. So I really don't know what to think moving into this. So I'm looking to you, Tony.
I first would like to say to anybody that compares Nyla to Nia in anything other than the letters in their name, I will fight you, because comparatively, Nyla is freaking Shawn Michaels, all right? And Nia is the broomstick. Like, whoa. Okay? Yeah, no, Nia Jax sucks. With regards to the street fight, I think that Sting's presence has been solely to prove to us that he can take a bump, that he is excited to be here, that he will be wrestling. With that being said, let's not lose focus on who the stars here are, Darby, Cage, and Starks. And I think they've done a good enough job building it. I think it has gone on a little too long. I think the body bag thing is a little dumb. I think that Darby's gimmick is great, but over the past few video packages, it's kind of like, oh, I think we talked about it, the whole jackass aspect of it, where, why are you doing this, bro? Like, all right, we get it. Because if face paint is truly the only tie that these two have, then why should I be okay with, Darby being dragged in a body bag? And if you're not okay with that, why are you doing it to Son? Is this an eye for an eye, or is this heel versus face? Or, I don't like when storylines give me too many questions and not enough answers. It just simply means there's not enough weight. They're presenting something to you, and they're assuming that it's enough for you. Now, that's a negative critique. The positive is I'm hoping for the best. It is giving Darby a rub. Cage and Starks are smarmy heels, and they're doing great with it. I feel bad for Ricky Starks, but I will tell you this right now. I am a Starks mark, okay? So I was upset tonight because it didn't make sense to me that he would go out there by himself just to get his ass handed to him, and then people come save him. But like, that's only because his character isn't fully formed yet. Because there's some people that would be able to explain that. Well, yeah, he would. That's Ricky Starks. Of course, he'd go out there and he'd slap Sting because he's a cocky, mf'er. And of course, he didn't tell anybody because he could do this on his own. He's anybody. So like, that's me filling in the gaps. That's not necessarily my job. But I also like Starks is the shit and could do no wrong. So I was like, what are you doing? Don't do that to him. Like, don't. He shouldn't be jumped. What? But I'm excited for the match. I'm excited for this whole event. Like I when they asked me to cover it, I'm taking work off to cover it, and you know, that's a feeling that I can't recall having. With the exception of the Royal Rumble for anything else.
Well, that's a mark of great confidence there. Let's see if you felt the same way about these final two matches. We had 10 versus Max Caster. Figure out who is the second to last entrant in this. I always keep on forgetting that Face of the Revolution ladder match seems pretty antiquated. It doesn't matter. But we had Jack Evans come in and help Max Caster with the win. And my question here is just: is everybody gonna end up in a faction? I mean, there's not a single team or a single person left standing because it looks like Jack Evans is along with Money Matt. Looks like Acclaimed is going to be with Money Matt. When did Scorpio Sky turn into a bad guy? Why is he being so mean to everyone on commentary? And as I'm saying all these things, I hope I'm not exposing myself as the guy that doesn't watch every episode of Dark because number one, that's not my job. That's Blake Lovell's job. But yeah, I don't know if I'm just missing on some of these storylines here or what exactly is going on or when I missed Jack Evans teaming up with Matt Hardy or when I missed Scorpio Sky start acting like a dick and so I don't know, but I felt like I was just missing a few things throughout this match. And I didn't know if it was me that was missing those things or if it was the match and the storytelling that was ending those things. So maybe you can help me connect these dots.
Well, I think that Matt basically paying everyone to do his dirty deeds, but kind of it can explain certain people's
Mm-hmm.
presence. I also feel like if what I liked tonight was that commentary said Matt promised he was going to ruin each member of the Dark Order's life, and he just did something like that tonight.
Right.
Um, like that's nice. If they keep that going, I'm gonna love that. Right? This is step one. Um, I I thought it was funny that $4,200 Jack Evans was written crudely on a bright yellow envelope. But like, it's like a prop for like a theater, put together or something. Like, wow, that was a little on the nose. uh, so I think that I could be okay with the whole I'm paying these people to do all this stuff for me. I'm hoping it's not a stable as much as it's just here's some money to do my dirty deeds, right? And some people would take that. I believe that some people would do that. As far as Sky goes, I'm hoping that this is chapter one of something coming. Off a little awkward, but AEW does that from time to time. A character that you haven't seen in a few weeks or that hasn't really done anything of note suddenly starts to do something, and it's just week one, and it is a little bit jarring. Like QT Marshall, what was his name? Staring down, his trainee, where he came out and had a match and won, and said essentially like, I like to thank the Nightmare family, blah blah blah, and then
Is it Lee
QT's
Johnson?
yeah, and QT Marshall's behind him staring at him like, I don't watch Dark either. Okay, I gave that up. But we really didn't get much follow up after that, as far as I'm aware. So it's like they plant something and then they're gonna bring it back. Hopefully they're gonna bring it back up. It's the good and bad of being able to focus on a large roster like that, where you can start something and as long as you revisit it in a proper manner, it's fine. But like that Lee Johnson thing, that's been a few weeks. So this Sky thing I think is chapter one of something that's coming. He might turn, he might win the ladder match, and become like this arrogant face of Elevation Revolution, whatever shun they're doing right now. I don't know.
Yeah, and I'd be all for that. I'm a big fan of Scorpio Sky. But as we move into the main event here, uh, we're looking at like you said, Matt Hardy's goal of taking down each and every member of the Dark Order. We have we have at the end of this match Matt Hardy standing in the middle of the ring, and it looks like the Dark Order is going to turn that plan around on him. And we have the big beatdown to end the show, to give a bit of a rub to maybe the least built match at Revolution. That's the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal, and that's something that AEW does very well each and every week, making sure that there's a little nod, a little wink, at least a little bit of build moving into each and every match that we saw. It was surprising to me that we didn't see any additional build for the exploding barbed wire death match outside of the little video package that we saw. But maybe they're just maybe they know exactly what they have in store for us, and they know that additional build isn't needed because they're already at the top of the cliff, and this is just a situation of okay, which one of us is going to get pushed off. But yeah, we have a lot to look forward to going into Revolution. So what we're going to do is we're going to go match by match, and we are going to break down who we think is going to be the winner. First of all, we have the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal. Of course, the Battle Royal to see who is going to be next in line for the AEW Tag Team titles. Whether or not that's going to be MJF and Chris Jericho or the Young Bucks, who knows? But which tag team do you think is going to be the next one plucked to put near the top of the mountain?
That's tough because there's so many. Also, I don't know if anyone knows this that's watching or listening, but I hate pull apart brawls. I hate melees. I hate every team coming down to cause a ruckus. It doesn't make any sense for me because if I'm a tag team that has an event coming up in a few days, the last thing I'm going to do is go run down to the ring and attack everyone and possibly get beat up just because
everyone else is.
I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. I've never liked them. I've hated them actually. I'll never forget the Taker and Brock pull apart tug of war with the title that just ended the show, and you're just like, what the hell? I don't like none of that. I despise lumberjack matches. Anything that doesn't make sense to me bothered me. So this pull apart thing just really was whatever. The tag team. This doesn't mean to me that none of these tag teams matter, but in fact, I think it means the opposite. I think it means anybody could win, and I'd probably be okay with it. But it's very hard to predict. I will say this: Ray and Pac, are they in it? I think they're in it, right? Yeah. Then that's my prediction.
I'd say that's a pretty good prediction. We also have FTR in here. We also have the Jungle Express in here. And with the amount of exposure both of those teams have been getting, of course, FTR never got their return match when it comes to the tag team titles, so that's always an option. But it looks like they're in different regions of the card now. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with either Jurassic Express or FTR, just with the amount of work that they've been putting in as of late to continuously keep both of those teams in our minds. Next up, we have Miro and Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Maybe the match I'm looking forward to the least, unfortunately, this Sunday for Revolution. A lot of people have been critical over the position that Miro's been placed in here, over the work that he's been doing. I haven't been super involved in I haven't been super interested in the angles that have been put on throughout building this match, but I am always going to be standing in line for Orange Cassidy. I'm never going to turn down an OC match, so I'm here for it nonetheless. But I think Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor may pick up the win, and that leads to Miro's frustration with Kip Sabian, perhaps. Where are you going to go when it comes to this? It's obvious right there. Say no more. You had the prop prepared for me. Why did I even start with the question?
I don't know. This is going to be an 8-star classic for sure. No, okay, so I think Miro getting a lot of slack from everybody is everybody putting their expectations incredibly high for him because they thought he was underrated in the WWE. Both of those can be true. He could have been underrated. He also may not be that great. Fact is, we just don't know because we were unable to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also have to give him credit for trying to find his footing. What is his character? Who is he when he gets there? Is he the former Rusev? Is he, that person doesn't exist to me? I was handcuffed. This is my new persona. Or is he just some brute that's going to kill someone? We didn't get to see that until maybe a month in. His first match, his debut match, was not that good. And I know people were giving me crap for saying that because it was Miro, it was the entering Rusev, but it just wasn't. It was substandard. It was subpar. Um, it wasn't until he found what he wanted to be, and I think we've seen that over the past couple of weeks. The interview from last week was great. He chewed some notes, which, I mean, it shouldn't be funny, but it was, and I think that's him. He's got some humor. He's going to put it out there, but at the end of the day, he even addressed the critiques that he's received in the promo tonight. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's been
Mm-hmm.
doing fine after finding his footing. With regards to this match, I am an Orange Cassidy mark, but I'm pretty sure that Miro and Kip are going to win. If you look at the way wrestling is written, they're in the driver's seat right now. Orange and Charles, they got one up on them and with a wedding cake. They asked for this match. They're the ones in control. So it's only fitting that the heels are going to win this one and move on. But I would be totally okay with Miro murdering Kip as well. So
I mean, he never got him a gift for the wedding, so maybe his gift is a nice freshly wrapped fist to the face. But next up we have the face of the Revolution ladder match. My big prediction here is that the unsigned superstar is going to show up in this match. I think it's pretty obvious that that's. I mean, if not the newly signed superstar, it's going to be another Swerve. Why else would they just ominously leave this spot open? But we have Cody versus Scorpio Sky versus Penta versus Lance Archer versus Max Caster versus TBD. And in these situations, 9 out of 10 times the winner is usually the TBD. So I may have to go along with that. What's your mindset moving into this?
if it's abeyance, he would totally win. But if it's like, yeah, that dude just, man, so many classic matches. Yeah.
Oh man.
Um, no, I think if what we heard tonight on commentary is to lead to anything, and the title of this ladder match, the face of something, Archer, love him, not a face of anything other than like destruction. Cody, I hope that his ego is elsewhere and he doesn't want to be the face of anything
He's the
either.
face of the Go Big show.
The,
He's got it covered.
yeah, so exactly. So and then the new person that comes in, I hope that they get away from that trope and that they don't just hand it to this new person, because you got people that have been busting their ass. I think Scorpio Sky is going to take it, and that'll catapult him into the heeldom that we think is started tonight.
Yeah, and we've seen Scorpio Sky kind of placed as a top worker as well in the past. He's had some major matches in the past. Can't forget his one-on-one title match versus Chris Jericho shortly after Chris's first inaugural title win. But next up we have Adam Page versus Matt Hardy in a big money match. Let's go ahead and dial off these last few so that we can go ahead and kick off the road to Revolution. Adam Page versus Matt Hardy. Who's the winner here?
Adam Page.
Adam Page. I agree with that one. Brian Cage and Ricky Starks versus Darby Allin and Sting in a street fight. Who do you have penciled in?
I really want Starks and Cage for sure. So I'm going to go with that.
Just to play devil's advocate, and I really hate that term. Nobody needs a devil's advocate. I mean, just agree if you want to agree. But nonetheless, I'm going to go with Darby Allin and Sting. We have the AEW Tag Team titles, Young Bucks versus the Inner Circle. That's Chris Jericho and MJF. We've been saying lots of bad blood leading into this match. Who's going to walk away with the straps?
I think the Young Bucks are going to keep the titles. I hope that their next challenger does not incorporate their balding father. So I'm going to go with the Young Bucks.
The amount of that Jericho and MJF can run with, being new tag team champions, there's just too much gold there for me to say that the Young Bucks are going to win this one. The amount of jealousy in the inner circle between Santana and Ortiz with Jericho and MJF, that's a gold mine right there. And then the potential of Sammy.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, and then the potential of Sammy possibly returning with another partner to try to take on Chris Jericho and MJF. There's potential there as well. But with there, I'll go ahead and go with the inner circle to pick up the win. We have 2 matches left. We have Shida versus the Eliminator Tournament winner, which we now know is Rio. Who is going to pick up the win on this one?
That's a tough one. That could go either way. I think I'm going to go with Shida just because I think she's cute. But if they wanted to make a new person, or if they wanted to give a little bit of a change, then Rio would be a good, alternate.
Yeah, Shida's the dominant champion. I can't see, with such little build, this being where they take it off of her.
Yeah.
We still have Abaddon somewhere back there nursing new injuries or whatever the heck's going on there, some unfinished business. But yeah, I'd say Shida has to keep on going. But of course, the match that everyone is waiting for, the talk of the wrestling world, the exploding barbed wire death match, Kenny Omega versus Jon Moxley. So much riding on this match, so much hype leading into it, and a myriad of different storylines leading up to this match. It all converges at AEW Revolution. In my mind, it's a foregone conclusion who walks away with this win. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's written for Moxley, and his whole speech about dying if he doesn't, either he's going to win or he's going to die trying, makes you think that, he's in this to win it. I think Omega's smarmy heel, push that he's had and all of his friends that he has might give him a bit of an edge, but I think it's sacrilegious to bet against Moxley in any type of death match. So I'm going to go with John.
See, I think I may have to bet against Moxley. Whereas you read the Moxley promo as he has to win this, I read it I read it as oh my gosh, he's going to kill himself and then he's going to go take care of a new baby for a few months. And
oh, he does have a child, huh? One of those things.
I think he almost has a child or somewhere in there.
Not quite yet.
So I think that may be the situation that we're looking at here, because Kenny Omega, he has so much steam behind him, and we need to see this.
That would be a really good win for him.
Yeah, and we need to see this Don Callis story play out. We've seen Don Callis, the master manipulator, and I want to see how Don Callis stacks the deck in Kenny Omega's favor this Sunday. Speaking of this Sunday, once again, we have Tony Acero covering AEW Revolution on 411mania.com. So make sure while you're watching the show, you're reading along with Tony's thoughts. No one better in the biz than Tony Acero giving his live thoughts on the show. So make sure you're on the site. Then anything else to plug, Tony, before we say goodbye tonight and before we head into Revolution?
Just follow me on Twitter, Tony Acero 411. Instagram, Tony Acero. A lot of fun stuff. I'm actually pretty funny. My mom gave me this humor. I didn't ask for it. It's dry and unnecessary, but it's there. I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view this weekend, and I'm also looking forward to more podcasts with Andy. And I did actually ask for this guest spot, so
he made my job easy this week.
Sometimes I get bored.
He made my job easy this week. So you heard it here first. Make sure you go follow Tony. Make sure you go over to 411mania.com to hear his breakdown on this episode of Dynamite as well as Revolution. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you in just a bit. Have a good night and enjoy Revolution.